At 10:47 p.m., in a house where nothing interesting ever happened, 17-year-old Ethan Price stopped hitting his best friend Mark with a baseball bat. He stood in the garage, breathing hard, looking at what he'd done. He believed in that moment he had executed the perfect crime. He was meticulous. He was calm. He had thought of everything. But what Ethan didn't realize was that his father had just pulled into the driveway. This case would be wrapped up by police in under 6 hours. Not because the evidence was overwhelming, but because the story they were told seemed to fit. A confession was signed. A motive was accepted. The file was closed. But one person saw the scene not as a crime of passion, but as a performance. And because of that, this open-end shut case would be quietly re-examined, picking apart a story that was too clean, too complete. By the end of this, you'll see the critical detail everyone accepted, and you'll understand why a single witness who saw the crime for only 3 seconds knew it was all wrong. This is Behind the Crime Files. We look at the stories left in the aftermath. The town of Cedar Ridge, Ohio, is the kind of place people describe as quiet. In 2017, it had one stoplight, a well-funded high school football team, and a crime rate so low the police department's annual report was mostly about found pets and parking violations. Mark Henderson lived on the west side, in a subdivision of similar-looking homes with well-kept lawns. He was 16, a sophomore. His life, by all accounts, was ordinary. He got B's and C's. He played first base on the JV baseball team. He had a girlfriend, Chloe, for about 4 months. His Instagram feed was a stream of memes, pictures of his chocolate lab, Duke, and sunsets taken from his bedroom window. His parents, David and Linda Henderson, describe him as an easy kid. He didn't get into trouble. His biggest worry was his batting average. His best friend was Ethan Price. They had been inseparable since 3rd grade. Ethan was a year older, a junior. He was quieter than Mark, more serious. He was in the computer science club, not on any sports teams. He was described by teachers as bright but withdrawn. Where Mark was all easy smiles and open expressions, Ethan was watchful. Their friendship was a classic dynamic, the outgoing one and the introspective one. They gamed together online, hung out in each other's basements, knew the codes to each other's phones. No one, especially not David and Linda Henderson, expected the night of Friday, October 27th, 2017, to be any different. Mark had texted his mom at 7:15 p.m., asterisk, going to Ethan's to work on that history project. Be home by 11. Asterisk, she had replied with a thumbs-up emoji. That was the last time she would communicate with her son. On the night of October 27th, at around 8 p.m., Ethan Price and Mark Henderson were logged into a multiplayer game, their headsets on, talking to a mutual friend, Jason Miller, from approximately 8 p.m. to 9:30 p.m. Jason would later tell police the conversation was normal. They talked about the game, a math test, a new movie. He heard no tension. At 9:30, Ethan told Jason he and Mark were going to work on their project. They all logged off. At 9:42 p.m., according to cell tower pings obtained by investigators, both boys' phones were at the Price residence. At 10:01 p.m., Ethan's father, Robert Price, left the house. He was a long-haul trucker, and a last-minute load needed to be taken to a depot 90 minutes away. He told his wife, Susan, he'd be back around midnight. Susan Price suffered from chronic migraines. She had taken her medication at 9:30 p.m. and was asleep in her bedroom by 9:45 p.m. Her door closed, a white noise machine running. From 10:01 p.m. until 10:47 p.m., there are no witnesses, no digital footprints, no phone calls. The only people known to be in the Price home were Susan, asleep, Ethan, and Mark. At 10:47 p.m., Robert Price's pickup truck turned onto his street. His trip had been canceled. The freight wasn't ready. He was coming home early. He pulled into his driveway at 10:48 p.m. The garage door was closed. The kitchen light, visible from the driveway, was on. As he stepped out his truck, he heard a sharp, loud crack from inside the garage. Then another, then a third. A rhythm, asterisk, thud, 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 asterisk. He froze, his keys in his hand. He thought maybe Ethan was working on something, building something, but the sound was wrong. It was too heavy, too dense. He walked to the side door of the garage, the one that entered from the backyard. It was unlocked. He opened the door. What Robert Price saw in those next 3 seconds was this. His son, Ethan, standing over Mark Henderson. Mark was on the concrete floor, not moving. In Ethan's hands was a wooden baseball bat, held at his side. The bat belonged to Robert. It was a souvenir from a minor league game. Ethan turned and looked at his father. Their eyes met. Robert Price would later state in his police interview, "He didn't jump. He didn't yell. He just looked at me." His face was calm. He looked down at Mark, then back at me, and he said, "Dad, I messed up." Police and EMTs were called. Mark Henderson was pronounced dead at the scene from massive blunt force trauma to the head. Ethan Price was immediately taken into custody. He was silent, compliant. At the station, he asked for a lawyer. Once the lawyer arrived, Ethan gave a statement. His story was straightforward. He and Mark had been arguing. The argument was about Chloe, Mark's ex-girlfriend. Ethan claimed Mark had found text messages on Chloe's phone that suggested she and Ethan had been talking behind his back. Mark had confronted him. In the garage, the argument got physical. Mark, who was bigger, shoved Ethan against the wall. Ethan, in a moment of fear and rage, grabbed the nearest thing, the bat leaning in the corner. He swung it once, just to get Mark away from him. He claimed he didn't mean to hit him in the head. Mark fell. Ethan, in a state of panic, thought he saw Mark moving, trying to get up. He hit him 2 more times to make him stop. Then he realized what he had done. He was standing there in shock when his father walked in. It was a story that made a terrible kind of sense. A fight between teenage boys over a girl, a weapon of opportunity, a panic-driven overreaction, manslaughter, perhaps not murder. The district attorney felt a plea deal was likely. But there was one detail that didn't sit right with the lead detective, a man named Carl Shaw. It was small. It was dismissed by others as a minor inconsistency, a product of a traumatic moment. Detective Shaw would note in his personal log, the father's statement about the first 3 seconds doesn't match the son's story of panic. Not at all. Later, it would become the lens through which the entire case was reframed. Let's pause the timeline here. To understand what Detective Shaw felt was off, we need to look at expected human behavior versus what was described. Ethan claimed he was in a state of panic after hitting Mark. The American Psychological Association defines a panic state in a violent context as involving a hyper-aroused sympathetic nervous system, elevated heart rate, shallow breathing, tremors, impaired judgment, and often a strong flight or fight impulse. A person in true, acute panic after committing an unexpected act of violence does not typically achieve a state of calm within seconds. They may freeze, they may scream, they may run, they may vomit. Their cognitive processing is fragmented. Now, consider Robert Price's observation. He described his son as calm. He noted the lack of startled response when the door opened. Ethan didn't flinch at the sudden sound or light. He turned slowly. He made direct eye contact. He formulated a coherent, 6-word sentence. "Dad, I messed up." His posture, according to his father, was not slumped in shock or vibrating with adrenaline. He was standing upright, the bat held loosely, not gripped like a weapon. Criminal psychologists consulted later would focus on this. Dr. Lorna Flores, in an analysis of the case files, noted, this immediate return to baseline cognitive function is not consistent with dissociative panic state following a violent, unintended death. The speed with which he assessed a new variable, his father's arrival, and communicated a succinct, blame-accepting statement indicates a high level of executive function was present. That part of the brain was not offline. It was in control. In simpler terms, Ethan was not reacting. He was managing. His decision to stop speaking until a lawyer was present further demonstrated this control. Teenagers in genuine terror, especially after accidentally killing a friend, often spill incoherent stories. They plead, they explain. They seek immediate adult reassurance, even from the police. Ethan did none of that. He contained the situation. He created a boundary between the event and the narrative. The story he eventually told was perfectly calibrated for sympathy and reduced culpability. A love triangle, a physical provocation, a single panic swing followed by two more driven by fear. It was a story designed to be believed, and it was by almost everyone. But the most critical piece of evidence wasn't a bloody bat or a frantic 911 call. It was something Ethan had done days before Mark Henderson was killed, and when it was discovered, it shifted the entire foundation of the crime of passion theory. Initially, there were no other suspects. The case was Ethan Price. The evidence was all there. He was at the scene. He was holding the weapon. He confessed to the act. His stated motive, jealousy over Chloe, was checked out. Interviews with Chloe revealed that, yes, she and Ethan had exchanged some flirty texts after she and Mark broke up. She said it was nothing serious, just messages. She also said Mark had been kind of bummed about the breakup, but wasn't angry or confrontational. He'd moved on. To investigators looking for a simple answer, it fit. A teenage boy's pride is wounded. He confronts his friend. Things get out of hand. On paper, it made perfect sense. But Detective Shaw kept circling back to Robert Price's 3-second observation. He also noted the physical evidence in the garage. The blood spatter was concentrated. There were no signs of a struggle, no overturned tools, no scuff marks suggesting Mark had been shoving Ethan around. The first, supposedly accidental blow was so devastatingly precise and powerful that a forensic pathologist stated it would have immediately caused incapacitation. The subsequent blows were directly on top of the first. This pattern looked less like frantic, panicked hitting and more like assurance. Shaw began looking backward. He subpoenaed Ethan's digital history from the week leading up to murder, not just texts and social media, but his browser history, his search queries, his location data. And he found it. For days before Mark Henderson was killed, at 2:17 p.m. on a Tuesday, Ethan Price, using his school-issued laptop, performed a series of searches from the Cedar Ridge High School library. The searches were: asterisk, how much force to fracture a human skull? Asterisk, best places to hit someone to cause instant unconsciousness. Asterisk, blood spatter patterns on concrete. Asterisk, does bleach destroy DNA evidence? Asterisk, how long does it take for a body cool to room temperature? He had used the school's public Wi-Fi, but had not cleared his history. He likely never imagined anyone would look this far back, or this deeply. This single detail reframed the entire case. Those searches were not the frantic, post-crime Googling of a scared kid trying to cover something up. They were premeditation. They were planning. They were research. This was a week before the supposed heated argument over a girl. This was cold, clinical inquiry into how to kill someone effectively and potentially how to clean it up. When confronted with this evidence, Ethan's lawyer advised him not to speak. The original confession was thrown out as part of a new plea negotiation, but the story was now irrevocably changed. The truth was far more calculated than a fight over a girlfriend. A deeper investigation, combined with testimony from other friends and a review of years of messages between Ethan and Mark, painted a different picture. The dynamic wasn't of two equal friends. Ethan was deeply resentful of Mark. Mark's ease in life, his social success, his athletic ability, even his seemingly happy family, grated on Ethan. In saved chat logs, Ethan would often make subtly cruel remarks that Mark would laugh off as Ethan just being Ethan. The girlfriend, Chloe, was not a catalyst, but convenience, a plausible, surface-level motive that investigators would readily accept. A forensic psychologist, Dr. Ian Weeks, reviewed the case for the prosecution. He concluded that Ethan exhibited traits of what is often called covert narcissism, mixed with profound resentment. He saw Mark not as a friend, but as a possession, a source of social validation that he simultaneously relied on and despised. Weeks wrote, the planning indicated a desire not just to remove Mark, but to orchestrate the aftermath. He wanted to be the author of the story, the tragic figure who made a mistake, not the cold-blooded killer. His father's early return was the only variable he didn't plan for, and in that unplanned moment, his true effect, his lack of panic, was visible. The planned sequence, as reconstructed, was chilling. Ethan knew his mother's medication schedule. He knew his father was supposed to be gone. He lured Mark over under the pretense of working on a project. He likely initiated a low-level argument to later justify a heat-of-the-moment claim. He then executed the attack with a bat, positioned where he needed it. The repeated blows were to ensure death. The next steps, investigators believe, would have involved using bleach from the garage sink to compromise the scene, potentially moving the body, and then calling the police with a story of a tragic accident during a fight. He would have been the sole narrator. It wasn't impulsive. It was a script, and Ethan had studied his lines. Faced with the irrefutable evidence of premeditation, Ethan Price pled guilty to first-degree murder to avoid the death penalty. In October 2018, he was sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole after 25 years. He showed no emotion during sentencing. He did not look at Mark's parents, who gave victim impact statements describing a hollow, unbearable world. The case left behind a shattered community and 2 destroyed families. The Henderson family moved away from Cedar Ridge within a year. They could not bear the constant reminders. Robert and Susan Price divorced. Robert blamed himself for not seeing signs. Susan initially believed her son's first story and blamed Robert for making it worse. They sold the house. The garage was professionally cleaned, but the stain on the community's memory remained. For Detective Carl Shaw, the case was a lesson in observation. The official report closed, but the feeling of those first 3 seconds, described by a stunned father, never left him. It was a reminder that the most crucial evidence is sometimes not a piece of data, but a human reaction that doesn't fit the story. Given the psychology at play here, the resentment built over years, the meticulous planning, the performance of remorse. Do you believe this crime was ultimately driven by a deep emotional need for control, or by a more detached, almost clinical intent to solve a personal problem by eliminating a person? What one thing do you think investigators would have missed if Robert Price had come home at midnight, as originally planned? If you are interested in psychology and the often overlooked stories behind real crimes, subscribe to Behind the Crime Files. We try to listen to what the evidence is really saying.